Hello, everybody. I'm Frances Taylor and I'm a sleep expert. And today, Hannah and I are going to have a really interesting discussion about sleep. So, very pleased to welcome you all here.
Oh, thank you, Frances. Yes, it's fantastic to be talking about this topic. So my name's Hannah Beko. I'm a coach and trainer to the legal profession and also a practicing lawyer myself, and have seen over the years how sleep is such a problem for all of us professionals. And I know it's a topic Frances and I often like to discuss, and we thought we'd record some of our thoughts today.
So we thought we'd start today by looking at why sleep is so important and why Hannah and I decided to spend this time exploring it. And I often call sleep the Cinderella of good health, because we all kind of know the public health messages around diet and exercise. But when it comes to sleep, there is a lack of public information out there about the importance of sleep and what to do about it if you don't get enough. So sleep really is the third pillar of your health and well-being, along with diet and exercise. And these days I often say, half jokingly, that it's a very good time to be an insomniac, because we have so much good quality research into the impact of sleep on our health and well-being. So we've got really good studies that show, for example, that in terms of physical health, that lack of sleep long-term will lead to high blood pressure and cardiovascular problems. It can make you more likely to put on weight and more prone to type 2 diabetes. It's also really important for your immune system, which is very relevant at the moment. Sleep has a massive impact on your emotional health. So there is an association between sleep and depression, sleep and low mood. And if you're suffering from lack of sleep, you don't need me to tell you that after a bad night, you're more likely to be irrational, emotional, feel overwhelmed, and more prone to stress. And then equally, sleep is really important for your brain health, for your productivity and your performance. And lack of sleep leads to problems with memory and learning, concentration, focus, and can also lead to an increased risk of accidents. And this can be explained by the way in which lack of sleep changes the way in which the brain actually the neurons of the brain cells actually communicate with each other. So sleep really is a central part of your health and well-being and your productivity and performance. I think you'll agree with me, Hannah. I can see you nodding there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's not a lot really I can add to that, Frances. I suppose I only really uncovered how important sleep was a few years ago when I was looking into my own stress levels and performance in my own legal business and things like that. And I was, what was starting to be talked about then is the understanding in the medical world that sleep is becoming, or a lack of sleep, I should say, is potentially even more detrimental to our health than smoking. So I think, where we've had this for years about the risks of smoking to our health, and it's now commonly understood, it's sort of not understood that a lack of sleep can cause real problems to our physical, mental, and emotional health, as you've outlined as well. So yeah, just from my perspective, from a practical perspective, why I've understood that sleep is so important is that, I was growing a business, I had children to look after, and I wasn't able to function with the stress levels that I was under. And a part of my journey to get that stress under control was definitely to take a look at my sleep. And I think they go hand in hand. Getting your stress under control helps you to get your sleep under control. But for all the reasons you've mentioned, Frances, it's vitally important, I would say.
Yeah, and yet in some places, in some workplaces, Hannah, I'm sure you'll have heard it. I've certainly heard it when I was working in a big office. People can boast about lack of sleep. It's seen as a bit of a badge of honor. I think it's changing now, but when you have politicians or celebrities saying they can get by on 4 hours sleep, it doesn't help. But I think, yes, you may survive on 4 hours sleep a night, but you definitely won't be thriving. So that kind of macho culture of I don't need to sleep, or sleeps for wimps. Fortunately, that's changing, but it takes a bit of time.
So now that we understand why sleep is so important, we've been asking ourselves the question, why aren't people getting more sleep? What's preventing them? And Francis has started to touch on that there with this macho culture, particularly in the legal profession that I'm part of and other professional services. It's been part of the culture to work the long hours and to discuss how late you stayed up doing a completion, particularly in the corporate world. And as a property lawyer, I would get involved in some of those deals sometimes. And it was, I was working till 10 o'clock. Well, I was working till 1 a.m. I was working all through the night. And it very much became part of this culture and almost a competition to see who'd slept the least. And I do think that's changing a lot, I hope. But there's still a lot of reasons why people are not getting as much sleep as they should. And if I might go first, Francis, and then pass over to you. From my experience myself, and also with my coaching clients, I see the biggest issue is that sleep is considered to be a nice to have. It's I'll get through my work and then I'll look after the children or do whatever it is I need to do after work and in the evening, and then I will get to bed. And it's not seen as it's not prioritized, and it's not put first in somebody's schedule. It's sort of an afterthought, a nice to have, rather than, as you've already mentioned, like a cornerstone of people's well-being. Is that something you see?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you talking about your professional life and the way sleep was regarded then took me back to my first sort of early career when I was a teacher. And when you're a teacher and you take your job seriously, you're never done. As in many professions, there's always something more you can do. And so in teaching, in the education world, there was always a lot of talk about having to stay up really late and then work. I knew many teachers that would work on a Sunday prepping and marking. And I was working with a client recently, and she had a lovely metaphor, and she said work is like the ocean. It's endless, it's boundless. And I think it's really useful to think about that, because the only way we keep work within a reasonable boundary is to make sure we put those boundaries in and have other things in our lives. And one of the things with working from home is that some of those boundaries have become quite permeable, and people have definitely found it harder to kind of leave work behind. So yeah, I think for me, it's a big thing about, sleep is always if it's always at the bottom of your to-do list, then you need to think about moving up, a good 2 or 3 places. And especially when you actually think clearly about how lack of sleep is actually impacting you, both in terms of your work, but also in terms of your family life, your social life, and the other things that you want to be doing in life. So I think we need to learn to give sleep the attention and the focus that it really deserves, rather than, as I said, it being like the Cinderella that we kind of ignore, in a corner, neglected, but actually given the importance that it rightfully deserves and needs. Yeah, absolutely, Hannah, I'm with you on that. And I think as women as well, we're kind of programmed to care for others, to put others first. And certainly I work with a lot of women that are in that generation where they've got teenagers, they've got partners, husbands, wives, and then they've got maybe parents that need looking after as well. So there's a lot of demand. But even within that, you need to be carving out and feeling okay about taking time for yourself, and especially to sleep and rest.
No, I agree with that, definitely. Again, it's something I've experienced and heard from clients, which is this, particularly if you are a parent, perhaps, or a carer, that you're doing your day job and then you're doing your caring responsibilities, and anything for yourself just comes right at the bottom of the list. Particularly if people do work long hours and have high pressured careers, there is not a lot of time outside that. And I know I've certainly heard from people who say, well, I work long hours during the week, so the weekend is all for the family, and there is no me time. There is no time for that person. So no, I see that as a problem as well, Francis, definitely.
Yeah. And interestingly, I find some of the people I talk to, they're staying up really late because the late hours are the only hours they're getting to themselves, the only quiet time, and it's pushing their bedtime, really too late. So they haven't got the appropriate opportunity to sleep. So that's something that can creep in. You might not start with a sleeping problem, but actually you try to squeeze sleep into like maybe 5 hours. And that's really when you'll notice that you're not getting the sleep you need. We need between 7 and 9 hours. That's what's now universally regarded as the sort of the aim. So many people are getting by on much less than that. And it's a question of really making sure you're getting the right amount of sleep. And it is a struggle, just like it's a struggle to prepare a healthy meal or go out for a walk, or everything. It's very easy to put work first and other people first, and it takes a lot of effort and habit building, I think, Hannah, to actually build in those small habits. But small things can make a big difference, as you know.
Yes, I do. And I know what I've come to do myself is that if I've got work that needs to be done before the next day, I am a huge fan of going to bed early and getting up early and doing that work first thing in the morning, because I know that is better for me. It's better for me to get the sleep, and I'll have more energy and be more focused and be more productive, as you said at the beginning, because I've had that sleep, than trying to do it for hours in the evening when I'm tired.
Yeah. I mean, some people are more owls, so they will wake up and have a second win late at night. But I think the important thing, whether you do that push, is just to do it occasionally. If that becomes your norm, then that's not sustainable long term. Everyone has to put in a few extra hours now and then, maybe, with your clients, as you say, when you're completing a deal or something. But, if that becomes your normal pattern of work, then I think that's a warning sign. Definitely.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. And I know another topic that you and I have discussed when we've talked about, well, why don't people get more sleep, is this idea that I'm a professional and I fix things for other people, so I should be able to fix this for myself. And I see this with stress with my clients, but you see it with sleep as well, don't you?
Definitely. I probably see it in myself as well. My hobby is sea kayaking, and so I have a coach for sea kayaking, and he's been saying some things to me, and I think, God, that just sounds exactly the same kind of stuff I might say to some of my clients about, mindset and being positive and, being resourceful. And it's the thing, isn't it? As professionals, we don't always take other people's advice on that readily. And I think, when you're trained to, as you say, problem solve, it can be quite frightening almost to think, goodness me, there's something that's supposed to be as natural and as simple as sleep that I can't get a grip of. I've been working recently with a woman, and she's held a really senior position, in charge of a big team. And she said, I just part of this has been actually admitting to myself that I need help. She said, I've been trying to ignore it, push it out of my mind, and it's absolutely a massive relief to actually say, yeah, hands up, my sleep's got out of whack. And it happens to so many people, and it's a very common problem. So I think recognizing when you need professional advice, in whatever sphere you're in, is really useful. And it's certainly something that I think everybody has to kind of work on sometimes and think about.
Absolutely. I mean, if we had a broken bone, we would be at the doctors and we would be getting advice and help and treatment for that. But if we have an issue with sleep or with stress or with something, emotional, we seem to think we can fix it ourselves.
Well, actually, I had a client who said to me, I'd rather have a broken arm than a sleep problem. And I thought that was so interesting because, if you unpick that, with a broken arm, it's very visible. People will look after you a bit. They'll make allowances for you. You've got a kind of an acceptable reason to be feeling under the weather or incapacitated in some way. You go to the GP. It's simple. You've got your treatment plan. But with sleep or with stress as well, there's a kind of a bit of a stigma about admitting it. You have to be careful who you reveal that information to, in case people kind of somehow think it's a weakness. And it's not always clear what you should be doing about it. I mean, when you've got a sleep problem or you're really stressed, it takes a bit of time to work out which what strategies exactly are gonna help you, and that's when talking to somebody else can really help you make those changes. So yeah, I love that quote. You know, I'd rather have a broken arm, and I just thought it said so much about how we perceive these difficulties around, you know, stress and sleep. I wouldn't rather have, well, I don't know, a broken arm. If it heals quickly, it's all right. But having said that, as you know, stress and sleep problems, you know, we know the clear pathways for treatment. You and I know them because that's our work. And I'm sure you'll have the same experience, that actually once you get sorted out what strategies are needed, it can be a really quick healing process, a recovery process. People are surprised, I think that's one of the things that stops people reaching out for help with maybe stress or sleep, because they maybe don't always understand or appreciate that actually it can be really quick to turn things around once you get some practical strategies in place. Don't know if that's your experience.
I think, well, and it's raising awareness and acceptance of it, which of course we hope this interview might do as well. It's just making people aware that they're not alone. This is something common and quite normal in the lines of work that we're all in, and that yes, that help is out there, and it's not. There's no weakness, there's no failure. In fact, I personally think there's a huge strength in reaching out and getting help with whether it is stress or sleep or whatever it is that we need support with. As you say, in the sporting world and in many other arenas, we're so happy to go and get help and coaching and mentoring and support. But with our you know, emotional health and things, it's been such a taboo for so long. But changing, I think, and I hope, and hopefully this interview will contribute to that as well.
Yeah, I think normalizing it is a big thing. You know, who hasn't experienced periods of stress? I certainly have. You know, as a newly qualified teacher, I was incredibly stressed, staying up all hours doing my lesson preparation. I never felt it was good enough, and of course lots of stuff out of my control. You know, when you're in that arena, you might prepare the best possible lesson in the world, but if the kids aren't playing ball, you've got a whole different scenario. You know, and it's the same in all situations, isn't it? We can work our socks off and things can still go wrong and cause us stress. So who hasn't had acute stress? Who hasn't had periods of sleeplessness? It is completely normal, especially in our, you know, the way we organize our lives now, you know, 24/7 culture and high demand. And yeah, so it is really, really normal. So I think that's an important message. I like to remind people that.
So, can you share your 3 top tips, Frances, for people who are not getting enough sleep and want to get some more?
Well, yes. So I do have 3 tips, and I think that with sleep, there's some really simple things you can do, and I'm going to go through 3 of them. But simple doesn't always mean easy. You know, we know the difficulty of knowing what we should do. There's a big gap between knowing what you should do and actually implementing it. But here are my 3 tips. So the first one is to create a regular routine if you're having sleeping problems. So to really have regular going to bed times and getting up times, even at the weekend. Now, this doesn't always go down very well, because lots of people with sleep problems, they'll be skimping on the sleep in the week and then having long lie-ins at the weekends. The trouble with that is that sleep is a habit and it really likes consistency. And if you have a long lie-in at the weekend, then you're going to find it harder to get to sleep Sunday night, for example, which means that Sunday night you don't have that much sleep and you're already waking up on Monday morning with a kind of deficit. So if you're struggling with sleep, have a really regular schedule and avoid lie-ins and napping during the day. My second tip is to have a wind down. So if you've been running, really running full on all day long and then into the evening, sorting the family out, etc., it's really unrealistic to be able to flip a switch. Some people can do it, but if you're having trouble unwinding, then I would say create a buffer zone of about 60 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, hour and a half, before you get into bed. So you can make that transition from what I call wired tired, when you're actually, really tired, but your brain's still spinning, from wired tired to sleepy tired. And sleepy tired is when you're ready for sleep. So sleep arrives when you're relaxed. So if you get into bed feeling wound up, then you're quite a long way from sleep, and that can make make it feel like you've got a sleep problem. So unwinding before bed, a time when you don't have any difficult conversations, when you don't check work email, when you keep off social media, and you really allow yourself to have that buffer zone. And my third tip is to make your bedroom a sleep sanctuary. And while we've been working from home, some people have had to work from maybe their bedroom. So really remove or at least cover up anything that reminds you of work, so you haven't got that trigger. And make your bedroom as comfortable and relaxing a place as you can. So, keep the tech out of it. If I'm working with someone and they've got sleep problems, then I will say, even take the TV out of the bedroom, because that doesn't actually help sleep. And definitely, if you use your phone to set an alarm, then once you've done that, please put your phone out of sight and out of reach, because one of the things that we do if we're not having good sleep is we check the time, and that triggers us into kind of thinking about, oh my goodness me, it's 2 o'clock, I'm never going to sleep again. So out of sight, out of mind with the phone. So they are my 3 top tips. And Hannah, I'm sure you've got some tips for us as well around stress.
Yes, absolutely. So my tips, following very much on from yours, Frances, are that, in my opinion, our night reflects our day, and our day reflects our night, of course. So how can we start preparing for a good night's sleep with how we're running our day? And for me, that is about having, personally, a great morning routine, because how I set up my morning is how the rest of my day goes. So instead of sort of waiting for the alarm to go off and snoozing it and things like that, decide what time you're getting up in the morning, get up and decide what your morning routine is going to be. Now, obviously, this is different for everybody, whether they've got young children, older children, whether they're there on their own, whatever their situation is. But I personally try to get up so that I have plenty of time before the children are up. I'll do a little bit of meditation. I'll have a little bit of peace and quiet, have a cup of tea or something, and then I'm in control of my day. So for people to think about a great morning routine would be my top tip, to then have as great a day as possible, and then be able to have as great a night as possible. My next top tip would be, and it leads on from one of yours, Frances, is to not panic when you wake up in the middle of the night. And this is something that has been a real game changer for me. So instead of waking up in the night and going through that, well, I must sleep, I need to sleep, I must get back to sleep, I'm going to be tired tomorrow, that doesn't help, and it doesn't help you get any more sleep. So what could you do in that period to actually just relax? I personally stay in bed, but I might put an audio book on, or put some music on or something like that, just so that I'm staying in bed and I'm staying calm, but I'm not panicking myself that I desperately need to get back to sleep. And my third and final tip, which is a favorite of mine for, yes, managing stress, but also works wonders for sleep, is to have a meditation practice as part of your daily routine. Mindfulness meditation exists in so many forms. For some people, it's riding a bike, it's running, it's swimming, it's doing a form of exercise. For me, it's the more traditional meditation where I sit down, close my eyes, and either listen to something or just take myself through a meditation. But just relaxing our minds and relaxing our brains, I've personally found has made a huge difference to my sleep. It is what stopped me from having those 2-3 a.m. wake ups every night. So that's my top tip as well.
I think between them, that's a pretty good recipe for reducing stress and increasing sleep. So I hope that's really helpful to our listeners.
Absolutely. And how can people get in touch with you to find out more, Frances?
Well, I have a website, which is sleepwell.today. And also I offer a complimentary sleep analysis call, and you can book that through my website. And that's a complimentary call where we'll explore what's happening with your sleep, and then I'll be crystal clear and be able to advise you about the steps that you could be taking to improve your sleep. And I love those calls because everyone's a little bit different, and it's a real good opportunity to offer some practical support. So please do take that offer up.
Yes, absolutely.
Website, yeah.
And if it's of any use to people, I've mentioned about having a good morning routine there. I have a blog post on my website. My website is authenticallyspeaking.co.uk, and there is a blog post in there called Good to Great, which is about how we can create a great morning routine.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Frances. It's been a pleasure as always.
Well, absolutely, Hannah. Love talking to you again. So thank you very much. And we'll probably leave it there for now, but no doubt we'll have other things to talk about in the future as well on the similar theme.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you.